Konnichiwa, I'm Jamie. Welcome. Today I wanted to share a little story with you and also acknowledge that it's been 80 years since since the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So Hiroshima was bombed on the 6th of August and then Nagasaki today on the 9th. So I had last month read the book Help to Hell and Back, which detailed the bombing of Hiroshima and how many of the survivors, when they were fleeing, a bunch of them went to Nagasaki and then had to either or perished there or survived the second bombing. The reason I wanted to talk about it today is because I am part of a Japanese group, or I participate in one that is a sister. Our city is a sister city to one in Kyoto, and we had a speaker come in on Wednesday for our monthly meeting, and she was talking about how the bombings and stuff are taught in the Japanese schools. And so they talk more about the impact of the bombs, whereas the book I was telling you about was very graphic, and how the effects of like the immediate effects and then the prolonged effects from like radiation and stuff. But they teach to remember very much like the Holocaust, and how you never, the whole thing is never forget. So just never forget how awful war is. Never forget the toll it takes on human lives, not just all the political stuff and aside, how it affects generations to come, and how they talk about or learn about the survivors and their life afterwards, and how many of them up until the 50s were very badly discriminated against for being survivors. None of the doctors knew how to treat people with radiation. They didn't understand the illness, and they whether they had scars, whether they lost entire families, everything they owned, whether they were children who are now orphaned. They learn about all this stuff, the human toll of war. And some of the stories they shared were not the ones that I had read about in the book, and hearing them were, as you can imagine, very poignant. And the fact that they didn't even want to talk about it until they were like in their 80s, but the memories never strayed far from their minds. They just were unable to say it without overly getting emotional and stuff. And so because nobody wanted to talk about it, nothing much was known about the toll it took. And then in the 50s, when they started doing anti-war activism because of the United States invasion of Korea, and the war that proceeded there, because we were once again considering dropping a bomb, and so they became very vocal about what, do not do this. And so it was really interesting meeting. I am glad to be part of this group where I get to learn about the culture. Sometimes we have other presenters in, that's how I learned about sumo, and ended up really enjoying it when I tried it. So we had a presenter come in, talk about the sport of sumo, talking about that there was actually a local Subo club. And so I tried it and really enjoyed it. We also had a presenter in talking about the art of bonsai, the potted trees, and how global and even just nationally in United States, competitions are for not decorating, sculpting bonsai, and just stuff like that is really fascinating. So it's really fun to be part of this, and especially when you get points of view like this. And one thing that I learned that I never even considered before, and it was interesting because our presenter, when she was working on the presentation, she learned things that she hadn't realized before. And one thing that I wanted to specifically talk about was the Korean immigrants in Japan that were affected by these bombs, and how many of them lived in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, just the large cities and stuff. So they were a very highly populated with Korean immigrants, because Japan had occupied Korea for decades prior to, and so some immigrants were forcefully sent to Japan, and then others immigrated in hopes of a better life and stuff. So they had so many, and they were already discriminated against in Japan. And then when these bombs hit, a lot of the Japanese families and stuff, you try to evacuate, and you go to your families and other cities to stay safe from any further attacks, from further radiation exposure, for like any kind of problems that came out of the bombings. And the Korean immigrants never got to do that. They had to stay there, and ended up having to also do the jobs that nobody else wanted to do, which was clean the corpses, is what you don't usually think about. And so not only do they have to do this really horrific thing, but they're also now being further exposed to the radiation. And that is if they didn't have any injuries and stuff themselves anyway. And so now they were double discriminated against, because now they were survivors. And so survivors, whether you were Japanese or Korean, were this discriminated population after the fact. And so they had this. So even when they tried to go back home to Korea, they had this dual discrimination that they took home with them, and then they were discriminated at home as well. And so they still have the same horror stories. They still have these same memories of survival. Some of them are disfigured, injured. They'll get illnesses later, and all this stuff that nobody really ever talks about. And so I just wanted to share that, because I found it interesting, just knowing that there was so many more people impacted than what you normally realize, and how they were impacted, and how it stayed with them, whether they were traveling to multiple countries, or whether they just passed that shame and stuff down through the family by just never talking about it until they were very old, and at the end of their life. So I just wanted to honor that today, and especially in the world that we're living in, because in the Holocaust, and the survivors of the 2 atomic bombs, and all the genocides that we've had throughout history, and how we still never learn. Like, we always, every generation, say never again, and look at how many genocides there are. Look at how many. You don't even have to have an A bomb to have damage. Like, damage is war. So Dresden was destroyed, and in Germany, and that was not an atomic bomb at all. That was just a lot of bombing, but it's just, I don't know how we just never learn. And so I just wanted to talk about, so when she was giving the presentation, there was a couple other people at the meeting who had that same Japanese education before coming here. And so I got a couple recommendations for you if anyone is interested. One is a graphic novel, or actually it would be manga. It's in English, it's called Barefoot Gang, Barefoot Gang, and it's essentially the orphans of these bombs, and then their kind of slice of life existence after, as they're living in the destruction and amongst the destruction as orphans. And so that is a multi volume thing that you can read. It's very popular. I have not read it. I just heard about it, so I'm definitely going to check that out. And anime that was recommended is the Graves of Fireflies. And so I also want to hopefully check that out this weekend. And for anyone who wants the, or to read, if they haven't already, the From Hell to Back, or To Hell and Back, is the one that I had talked about, or I'll link below the video in which I gave a long review, or actually description of the book. So if you're interested, and also not just the Japanese experience from the bombings, but like the Japanese experience in general during the war. Another graphic novel that you can read if you haven't already is They Call Us Enemy by George Takei. And that is about the Japanese internment camps that we had here in the United States after December 7th, when Pearl Harbor got bombed. Then we started rounding up Japanese families, even though there were Japanese American families, many of them, and just put them in concentration camps. And they were also very badly treated there, and they weren't trusted even after the war. There was this distrust and stuff that they had to work through. Our country had to work through, because they didn't do anything wrong. And so that's a good, if you want like the overall aspect of the war and its effects. And not that they're lighthearted at all, but maybe the fact that they're anime, manga, and graphic novel, they might be at least a little more tolerable to read, because it is very hard subject matter. But I do recommend all of them. When I do consume the two that I haven't yet, I will definitely give my own reviews, but I just wanted to let you know that they were out there if you're interested. And I guess just be kind, be present, be loved, and for all the people all over the world who are, whether they're immigrants and or refugees or survivors, just know that you're valid, you exist, you matter, and you are loved. And I just wanted to say, in honor of 80 years of this, and we haven't done it again, but you know, unfortunately, in the world that we're living in, you know, you can't take anything for granted. So just, I guess, just, you know, love and educate yourself of the things that you might not know, just so that you don't allow the past to repeat itself. And so I guess that is it. I just really wanted to do this video. It meant a lot to me, and I hope that you at least got something out of it. John A.